I just don't want to play off Amarek, that would be a bit silly, I think. Alright, we'll be starting in 5 and we'll go and go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So welcome ladies and gentlemen to Crash Bandicoot 2 N-Tranced for the Game Boy Advance. This was the second 2D Crash game released, and it is quite a fun platformer game, and often gets overlooked by a lot of the more popular 3D titles. So there's two main parts to this game. There's the standard platforming levels, and there's also a fair quantity of vehicle levels as well. For those unfamiliar with Crash, the main objective in this game is to go through every single level and collect all the crystals, and then defeat various bosses. And the more crystals we collect, the more levels we unlock, and so on and so forth. So as I mentioned, the levels are broken down into two types, the platforming levels and the vehicle levels. The platforming levels are all vaguely the same, and will all follow the theme of either being Arabian, Egyptian, or like a volcano, like prehistoric type theme. With the exception of the very first level, which is kind of the introductory tutorial level. The vehicle levels, there are a few different ones. This one is the wakeboarding level, where we're trying to get away from the shark. Although it does appear to be an auto-scroller, there are various bits we can do during these levels to speed up and slow down. For example, throughout this whole level I am holding down the B button specifically to increase our speed. Not holding that would cause us to go a bit slower. Anytime we spend in the air, we're slowed down. Anytime we're going through grass, we are incredibly slow. And any death will send us right back to the previous checkpoint. The crystals in these levels are just located at the end of the level. So in terms of what we're trying to collect, there's a lot of different collectibles in this game. The only ones we're particularly interested in are the crystals. There are extra ones for breaking all the boxes and going out your way to find hidden gem shards. And there's also a time trial mode in this game to unlock various relics as well, but we're not going to be doing any of that. So we're just interested in getting to the credits as soon as we can. But throughout this first world, the movement we're going to be doing here is going to be a bit different from the movement we're doing for the rest of the game. Mostly because, similar to Crash Bandicoot 3 for the PlayStation 1, you gain power-ups after defeating every boss, and the power-up we gain from the first boss allows us to play through this game incredibly quickly. Until then, we're just going to be sliding and spinning. Sliding is the fastest way of getting around, however the end of a slide is relatively slow, so we interrupt that with a spin to bring us back up to regular moving speed. As I mentioned, each of the platforming levels will either take the theme of an Egyptian level, like the ones you just saw, an Arabian level, such as the one you're seeing now, and a volcano level, which you'll be seeing a few in Warp 2. The differences between these levels are mostly aesthetic, and also shows what type of enemies and mechanics are in these levels. For example, these levels have a lot of genies and scorpions, and a few magic carpet segments. The Egyptian levels have mummies and snakes and cobras, and the volcano levels and like prehistoric levels have a lot of lava going about. These are the Atmosphere levels. These are fully 3D and a bit of a pain to navigate, especially on the D-pad of the Game Boy Advance. So these levels do have some shortcuts in them, luckily enough. That allows us to bypass a lot of bits of the level. Fortunately, we just ran into a nitro there, which was unideal. For those unfamiliar with Crash Bandicoot, a lot of the mechanics boil down to you have these boxes which generally contain fruit, and that's a sense of scale. You just generally want to collect all of them when playing it casually. There are the fruit, which give you 100. Well, when you get 100, you gain an extra life. There are TNT boxes, which explode after 3 seconds of touching them, and nitro boxes, which are instant death. However, you can avoid death and damage by collecting the Aku Aku masks, which is that gold mask that's following us now. The first one you collect will be quite colourful, the second one you collect will turn it golden, and then the third one you collect will turn you invincible for a short period of time. So here, luckily those scorpions were positioned in such a way we could bounce over the top of the railings, which allows us to quickly jump up and get that top route. So both the Egyptian and the Arabian levels have two types of vehicles within the platforming levels. This is a magic carpet, which is simply a auto-scroller type segment, where we just need to wait to get to the end. And then the volcano levels have a similar bit, which is a helicopter pack, which gives us full 3D movement. Or well, sorry, full 2D movement, so we can move up, down, left, and right. So coming up here is a pretty tight jump. And we got it, nice. So this is the first boss of the game. So the kind of the plot of this game, we've been skipping all the cutscenes, is that there's this master hypnotist which has been hired by Entropy and Uka Uka called N-Tranced. And his main thing was he was stealing all of the Crash characters and trying to like turn them evil. Now luckily he only mostly succeeded. He didn't fully succeed. He managed to hypnotize Crunch, he managed to hypnotize Coco, and he managed to accidentally pull a fake version of Crash, which if you've seen fake Crash before, that's the same thing. So that was Evil Crunch. That boss is relatively short and goes by faster than it takes to explain him. So now we unlock the Super Slide. It's basically the slide, but we can now go very fast. And this is actually completely intended. There is nothing glitchy about this, there's no special move or anything. This is literally as the game intends you to use the move. Thus you can tell, the rest of the game from here on out is going to be extremely fast-paced. So you'll notice we're taking damage in a few places. It's mostly because there's little to no advantage other than being invincible to have the 3 masks. So as long as I'm good and know where I'm going, then being invincible doesn't help too much. So we can use these masks to speed ourselves up and just quickly run through bits which would normally kill us. So now that we've unlocked Crunch, Crunch is going to be the character we're going to be playing as during the remaining 2 Atmosphere levels. Now, from here on, every single Atmosphere level will introduce a new mechanic. In this one, it introduced the rolling barrels that go from side to side. Just to talk about cycles briefly in this game. So all cycles in this game are based on proximity cycles. And what that means is, usually when people talk about cycles in games, they usually talk about global cycles, which are cycles that start when the game powers on, and then will continue constantly. However, in this game, cycles only start when you approach them. However, also what that means is we can predict every single cycle as long as we approach it in the same way that I usually do. However, if I die and get sent back, then I need to adjust to whatever new cycle has appeared. So these Arabian levels also contain oil in them, which can allow us to go very fast. Super sliding on oil is the fastest movement in the game, and there is a useless out of bounds trick in this game which exists, which, well, as I mentioned, we don't really have any use for. Because super sliding on oil is so fast it breaks the game's physics. So this is the second wakeboarding level. In this one we actually do have a lot more things to watch out for. Unfortunately we died in the previous level by falling down the pit, which caused us to lose all our masks. That's not too much of an issue, we just need to focus on picking up a few more. Like I said, having invincibility or anything along those lines is not typically what we're using the masks for. Typically we are just using them for the damage abuse. So here, as I mentioned, all we're doing here is trying to stay on the ground for as long as possible, avoiding jumping wherever possible, and avoiding the grass at all costs. Of course, you are going to see me jumping left and right sometimes, just to get out of the way of some grass and some obstacles. see there just how much grass slows you down. Right, there we go. So these volcano levels also have these auto-scroller type platforms, but generally we're going to be skipping past those as much as we can by sliding off them early. But unfortunately we do need to wait on a few of these. Luckily there's a few bouncy crates down there, so that bit likes to drop your slides. So here's the helicopter pack I was discussing before. So this allows us to have full movement up, down, left and right, which is quite nice. Unfortunately we can't bring it anywhere outside of where it's intended to be, so there's not too much interesting you can do with it. And there's no real movement optimizations with it, it's just kind of taking the fastest path we can. So this is the second boss of the game, Evil Coco. Now Evil Coco is a relatively simple boss, although we want to hit her as soon as we can, which is quite risky. That was a bit of a slow hit there. So luckily we can kind of just cheese this boss and just camp over the left hand side. So the first phase, she just goes right then left. Second phase, she does it twice. And then third phase is the exact same as the second phase, but she goes a lot faster. And she also destroys the ground, but that's not a concern to us. But yeah, this level's a nice little break. Although I have died to it more times than I will ever admit. Yeah, so I went for an early hit there, and unfortunately I was a bit too quick. So after defeating Coco, we've unlocked the rocket jump. We do the rocket jump here, and that's all you're going to see of it for the whole run. It's supposed to be used to get to a few high up boxes, but we're not actually going to use it to do any of that. We're going to be going all the way up here to get this mask, because we were one mask behind what I wanted to be at. And that was very close to falling in the lava there. Like that to be in third mask form, and now I can just kind of relax for the segment, which is quite nice. So these enemies that are appearing out the window, those spit fire at you, and it can be a bit of a pain in some levels. Luckily we don't need to deal with them too much, and they don't start off by spitting fire, so because of the proximity cycles we're usually safe. It's just in some of the other categories where we need to backtrack through them. That's when those enemies can typically become problems. So this is the final of the 3 wakeboarding levels. In this one, we're mainly just trying to make sure we don't get hit by anything just about, and especially make sure we don't get eaten by the shark, which is an insta-kill. So I got that mask there, but apparently I was not in third mask form? I'm not sure what happened there. So in this level I actually need to be pretty safe, because as you noticed, whenever I finish any of these levels, I get pulled towards the center of the screen. I purposely lure the shark over to the edges, because the shark can eat you whilst you're stuck at the center of the screen, because of the cutscene. So this is the first of the Coco levels. Luckily there's only 2 of these. These levels are relatively similar to the wakeboard levels, except we're doing it the other way. We're going towards the camera instead of away. This is, I believe, Run from the Sun. And just the aim of this level is just to shoot the enemies. All we can do is move left, right, up, down, B to boost, and A to shoot. Luckily, we have plenty of health, so we don't need to worry too much about getting shot. This level is actually relatively hard to die in, I usually like to say, so we're not going to be worrying too much. A lot of these enemies we can just kind of boost past if we lure them over to the corner. What we're going to be prioritizing is going through the boost gates whenever possible. The boost gates give us an incredible amount of speed, and whenever we're not near any of those, I'm just furiously mashing B to get as many boosts off as possible. Along with the Atlas Ball levels, these levels can have like the highest variance in terms of during a run where you save and lose time. Normally during runs, for example during Warp 1, I'm generally only around like below half a second variance in all my platforming levels. However, when it comes to levels like these, it can, you can easily lose between 2 and 5 seconds, as well as save 2 to 5 seconds. This is Mr. Lava Lava. So this level is kind of important that we leave here with 2 masks. We can lose a mask before now, but now that we've kind of gotten here, I kind of need to maintain both of these. We're not going to collect that mask because it's a little inconvenient for a bit we're going to be coming up to right now. This bit. Okay, we should be good. We should be good. So any of those ropes that we slide down, we can immediately fall off by doing a spin. So we're going to be leaving as many of those ropes as early as possible. So here's an example of us playing this relatively dangerously. So that blue box, I think we've probably passed a few of them already, but I've just not mentioned them. That freezes every enemy on screen for a certain period of time. So this is Slip and Slide and Sphinx. This is why we wanted 3 masks, because there's a lot of oil in this level, which means we can go very fast. I'm gonna play this bit a little bit safe, make sure we don't fall anywhere. Don't wait for that, don't want to risk that today. So yeah, there's that dude who just kind of knocks down boxes towards you and is just kind of an asshole, and if you get caught underneath the box, you will just fall to your death. This is Fake Crash. We hit him on every frame possible, just because you can kind of do that on this boss. And that's Fake Crash. So after Fake Crash, we have unlocked the Tornado Spin, which allows us to hover horizontally using the spin. So this is the final Atlas Ball level, and this is the one where cycles really do matter, and is in my opinion one of the hardest levels in the game. At least one of the hardest levels in the game to do fast. So in this level, it's introduced lasers. Lasers are insta-kill, we don't have masks during these levels. However, luckily they all start turned off, which means as long as we're fast and get through the portion of the level with the lasers fast enough, then we don't need to worry about the lasers. However, if we're too slow in approaching them, or we die after having spawned in the lasers, we will need to take the level quite slowly. So, well, we got through there. That's the only bit I'm concerned about, because you need to be very careful with those barrels first. Also, sometimes you just don't make it up those ledges. I don't know why, it's just maybe not enough speed, maybe too much speed. It really just varies. So here we're going for a little shortcut. And we made it. Cool. There's a lot of death planes in this to try to stop you doing that. However, we're just kind of carefully navigating around those. That was Rock Skin Roll. Eruption Disruption. This is the final volcano level we're going to be seeing. Oh yeah, this is the last world for the record. We're almost done this game. This is the final volcano level. This is just kind of one of the harder levels in the game as well. Not too much to comment on here. There's a cool shortcut we can do by doing this, and using the Tornado Spin. and we're going to abuse third mass form here. So there's a set of lava shoot things that pop up at us. Now we're going to use the mask to boost through these. Now normally it would be a case of one would come up, and because you had to wait for it, the other one would spawn, and so on and so forth, to the point where you need to wait for all of them. However, by using third mask form to get through the first one, we don't need to worry about any of them, which is really nice. So that portal is slightly off the ground. If you just hold right, you will fall to your death, and I have done it once, and it wasn't pretty. So this is when people are starting out playing N-Tranced. I generally see a lot of people struggling with this level. It is quite technical in terms of its movement, however it is something you can get used to. Mostly the second half of this will trip people up. So there's a few things to note. There's a lot of ropes which we can spin from, and also jump and climb up and down. There's the hangrails, and then there's also the people who will be spitting fire from the windows, as well as some scorpions. What's important to note is that sometimes you will just not be able to grab a hangrail because because you are currently spinning. Sometimes during the spinning animation you can actually grab a hangrail, but there's some parts of the spinning animation where you just cannot. Okay, luckily we got through there without any hassle. This is spaced out. This is the longest single level in the game, and is the only other space level. This level is also quite difficult, and generally a lot of people can't make it through on a single life. Some people will do a death abuse halfway through. However, we're gonna not do that. We're just gonna try to go as fast as we can. So everything kind of does a different amount of damage. The small the small spiked enemies will deal around 10. These meteors that are coming towards the screen will do about 20, and I think those flaming meteors do somewhere in the realms of 25. So we really don't want to be getting hit by those. But here is a horrific screen where we can kind of lure these guys all together into the corner, and then boost past them. I could have done that a bit quicker, but we didn't. Right, so we're at 66% of health, and we're coming up to the end of the level here, so I'm just gonna concentrate on boosting instead of trying to avoid enemies from here on out. Now we can take 2 more hits. And that's the end of the level. Nice. Right, we just have 1 more level and a boss. This is King to Uncommon. Now we're not going to be taking the standard route for this level. There's 2 routes you can take. The top route, which is the one you're supposed to take, and the bottom route. We're going to be taking the bottom route just because it ends up being faster. Although you're generally intended just to do this for the gem shard. I think this guy is like the demotivator, I would dub him. He's the one who's supposed to be telling you, no, you're not supposed to go this way. But luckily, with a well-timed spin, we can just kind of jump past him. We can just kind of jump up here and grab the crystal, then jump over. Not died to that guy, I've died to that beetle so many times. And there we go. Right, this is the final boss, N-Tranced. N-Tranced is split into two phases. The first phase is a platforming stage, and the second phase is a helicopter stage. So in this phase, we're just aiming to deal damage to him as fast as possible. And in the final hit, we can just kind of camp in the corner. So just a heads up, you'll want to be getting ready on time relatively soon. So in this phase, we just need to spin N-Tranced into this lava pit, and then Fate Crash will dump lava on them. Time is when the final bit of like orange health disappears from N-Tranced's health bar. So we can just kind of abuse the fact that we're standing above N-Tranced, because he never changes where he fires. So we just hit him down, hit him along. There's two other types of bullets he can fire, but I guess we're not going to see them. One will invert our controls, and the others will make just a bunch of duplicates of Crash. Okay, we're getting pretty good RNG, I guess. So, time. Okay, how was that? 2647, dude, I will take that. We take those, my boys. We take those. Well, anyway, that was Crash Bandicoot 2 N-Tranced for the Game Boy Advance.